Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a guest who's returning from the mists of the past of this podcast history, Charlie Brown.
Charlie
C.D.
Brown.
Brown. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, these days, I live in two worlds, or three worlds actually.
That's why you have three names.
Right, I do have three names. I write literary fiction under Charles D. Brown, so that's two of my books, and I write fantasy fiction under the name C.D. Brown, which is two books, and I edit Dirty Magic, a magazine, which we'll talk about later, as C.D. Brown. And then Charlie Brown edited Dirty Magic Los Angeles and Dirty Magic New Orleans, and Charlie Brown is also the filmmaker. So
yes, the films, yes, that side of things.
So I've got I can barely keep track of myself.
Yeah, I mean, and here I am looking at maybe starting a pen name or like a pseudo pen name at some point next year, but the less said about that, the better, because it's supposed to be a secret, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, as Charlie Brown, I mean, I was Charlie Brown from the day I was born because, obviously that's my real name. Yep. And there's a long story behind it. And, when I started writing and I started producing movies, I was like, no, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be me. That's who I am. I'm not Charles Brown. Nobody ever, only like one college professor ever called me Charles. Everybody else knows me as Charlie. Most people know me as Charlie Brown as if it were one word.
Well, hey, that differentiates you from someone who was the subject of a comic strip,
right
in the day.
But then I realized, and I was talking to Nobilis Reed about this. We were talking at Balticon one time, and he goes, "You really need a pseudonym." And I was like, "Oh, I know I don't." And then I started getting into the writing thing a little deeper, and it's like, yeah, you can't Google me. Google is already messed up enough, but now it's just like, oh yeah, the first 1,000 pages are peanuts. And so I was like, okay, you've got to go Charlie Brown writer to find me, and very few people are going to take that jump. So I went to the pseudonyms, and I don't know. It hasn't really changed anything. More now, just because of the magazine that's gotten a little bit of attention, and so I just kind of see myself, as I'm still writing, but I'm kind of more as I slide into that editor publisher kind of way. That's it can be. It's not so much that my name is up front, and my name is the brand. But Dirty Magic is now the brand, and that's something that I can.
Right.
That's easier to find. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's kind of what I was leaning toward with this one, because I want to get back into science fiction next year instead of just doing fantasy, which is mostly what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's still going to be science fantasy. I'm not really a hard science fiction kind of guy.
Yeah.
On any level, but I really. I've debated for a while how to do it. I think I found a good way, but again, that has to stay secret. So I'm just going to stop teasing people with that.
Well, I'm actually, I'm not, like I said, I'm not writing as much as I want to right now. But I have, because I've got two books. One, okay. So if you're familiar with my work, I've finally written the sequel to Vamp City, and it's ready. I need to finish my pass on it to get it ready. I have a cover; it's all ready. So, but before the end of the year, we'll get that one out. And then I've got another. It's a weird hybrid literary fiction, action fiction, conspiracy comedy that is so wild that right now, that especially every publisher I sent it to, like most of them, didn't even write me back. So,
fair enough. That sounds really interesting. And it reminds me, the description, I started like, wait a minute. It sounds kind of like, and I know you didn't write adaptation with Nicolas Cage, that movie, but it sounds like that might be in this. It might be like a similar category.
Well, it's a Hollywood. I lived in Hollywood from '97 to 2001, and then moved back there in 2012. So I was there from 2012 to 2019, and I wrote this book. I started writing it in 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. I think I finished it here in New Orleans. But this was my big Hollywood book.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a Y2K book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so it's like I said, there's this like.
So what do you mean by Y2K? Really I guess time. I mean I have a vision of what you mean by Y2K. Yeah, as one of those gross millennial people, it's probably different from what you're imagining.
Well, Y2K, and particularly about the Y2K bug.
Okay. So like the Office Space thing.
Yeah, it starts. I mean, it's Y2K in general, the malaise, the pre-millennial tension, all that sort of stuff. But then it's also directly addresses the Y2K bug, which, as most people know, got fixed fairly quickly. But the conspiracy that I have created is centered around the Y2K bug and what would have happened if not if the Y2K bug had hit Los Angeles, but if somebody had set it up so that the Y2K bug would go off and then hit Los Angeles with a giant number of EMPs to simulate what would have happened if the bug happened.
Okay.
But at the same time,
they're faking.
At the same time, it's a Hollywood satire about screenwriters and actors. It's like,
okay. Really, I can see how that's a difficult sell for people.
It is a difficult sell. So, but I'm gonna. I mean, if I'm not going to talk about who, but I did. I've gotten an editor to look at it just in general, and if they say trunk it, it's no good, then I'm going to trunk it. But if they say it's good, but I don't see anybody buying it, I'll just self-publish it. There's nothing for me to lose. I mean, there's literally no money. I'll just, I'll make the cover myself, and I can do layouts since that. I mean, I'm laying out the magazine now, and I laid out the anthology, so I know how to do layout. So yeah, it won't cost me any money. It's already I'll just make sure that I really make the edit as strong as possible. So it's kind of weird, but
but it sounds like a fascinating book, honestly. And the really weird books are often the ones that strike me as the most. I mean, obviously they stand out. They're the exceptional ones. They're the weird ones that are obviously different,
right?
But on some level, I mean, like how many more space operas are we going to read about spaceships that are the last survivor of their fleet fighting aliens or whatever? Alaska knockoffs or whatever.
Well, me and tropes have never been best friends. But because I mean, my first fantasy novel was the urban fantasy, Vamp City. Mm-hmm. It's a vampire novel, but it's not a gothic horror. It's not a romance. It's actually a Dashiell Hammett style mystery.
Oh, okay.
Where the lead vampire moves to Los Angeles and is so old that she's the most powerful vampire as soon as she moves into Los Angeles and kind of takes over as the sheriff. And so there's this, this mobster who turned vampire from the 50s is trying to retake over the town. And so it's like a Hammett novel. It's like Red Harvest by Dashiell Hammett. Okay. And with all these little gangs fighting each other. And of course, Red Harvest was from what Toshiro Mifune took that for for his movie,
not a fistful of dollars.
Right,
what's it called? Yojimbo.
Yojimbo, and then Sergio Leone took it for a few dollars more. So it's a good formula. But when you throw in vampires and probably my most unforgettable thing is in there when I was talking about. I made the love interest for the main vampire. I was like, I wanted to get a bit of lycanthropy in there, but I didn't want to play it safe. So I came up with the werepossum, and that's the thing that everybody remembers.
I've definitely heard of the werepossum, and I haven't read that book. So there you go. The Circle rerun, and people know about the werepossum.
Yeah, that was like my little throwaway thing, and it became the most popular thing in the novel. Because people come up to me and like, that werepossum thing, man, that was so funny, so.
Well, I'll see your werepossum and raise you one squid shifter as the love interest in one of my novels. Actually. Squid Princess, actually.
Yeah, that's a good one,
which is maybe even grosser than it sounds. But who knows? Possibly better. I don't know.
Well, I think, for me it was, I wanted, you're from the South and you see possums like just everywhere around here. You see some big ones down here. It was just like, I could play with that, and I made him like a stunt guy because of the werepossum, because possums are so bendy. He can just do these impossible stunts, so he's ended up being a stunt guy.
Oh, he's got like a contortion thing going on.
Yeah. So that was kind of the reasoning behind it. But that one was fun. And then, for my other fantasy novel, which was more of a sword and sorcery, straight up kind of Fritz Leiber, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser kind of thing. I always wanted to, I'm a big Dostoevsky fan. And I love Russian novels, but I didn't want to write a 1,000-page depressing novel about that. So I took the idea of Crimea, which is very similar to New Orleans in the sense that it's a port. It's a port kind of place, and there's it's a crossroads of a lot of. So like here in New Orleans, you have Irish, Italians, Germans, French, and Spanish, obviously.
And everything from the Caribbean, all those people.
Yeah, and then African Americans, and you have all these kind of people mixing it around. And so I kind of took that idea and I put it in. I used the Russian naming, and so I had kind of like pseudo Greeks and pseudo Italian, pseudo Irish, and pseudo Persians, all kind of mixing in this overall Russian kind of
That sounds neat.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
And what's that one called?
That one's called Fate's Stiletto.
Okay.
And that one.
See why that might. The name is a little tough. I don't know. The stiletto. I wouldn't. I'm just thinking about when I title a book. I'm like, I'm not sure if I would have gone with stiletto. I mean, that's kind of a tough one.
I mean, I was thinking about the idea of the stiletto. Like the. It's the knife,
jab and dagger.
And the thing is, it makes a wound that won't close.
Yeah, because it's perfect. It's like a cylinder. It's not
right. Exactly. Yeah. So that was kind of what I was going at. It's like when you get stabbed with with that there's a permanent kind of mark on you, and it was going to be it was going to be the weapon.
I mean, that's cool. I'm just saying the word itself is the challenging part.
I still misspell it every time I write it.
Right. It's like how many T's?
One T, two L. 1 T, 2 L.
Okay. Actually, there must be at least 2 T's though. Stiletto. Yeah. There's no D in it, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, never mind. That's what that kind of riveting content people tune into this show for.
Right.
2 guys debating how to spell stiletto. Anyway.
But I was gonna do a series of them. Fate's Hammer. Fate's Cutlass, all this sort of stuff, and since the book really, I love it, maybe 5 people have read it.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's happened to me more than once with my books too. I'm like I launch when I launch a book, it's like we're gonna roll the dice on this one. At least that's how it's been in the past. And lately I've been getting a little better at launching, but still have to prove it.
Yeah, no, that's what it all boils down to.
But I do like. Go on.
Oh no,
I like.
No, it's just like so. When I was, this is the long route to where we were going before. Is that I'm back to something, and it's in the back of my mind, and I think maybe by the time the next semester, I actually have Tuesdays and Thursdays off. So I better damn well write a novel next semester.
So much for your excuses on those days.
Right, exactly. And so I am writing for the first time a true, not a true science fiction novel, but it is a science fiction novel in the sense that it takes place in the future, and it's about New Orleans, and it's about there's a little bit of it's political in the sense that I'm forecasting through this novel. I don't know if this will happen.
Right, there's a little bit of a predictive element.
Yeah. I mean, I'm predicting that the United States is going to break up, and that
okay, interesting.
Yeah, and that New Orleans will be its own kind of Venice city-state, surrounded by the Neo-Confederacy. And but it's also going to be about the real New Orleans, which is a city held together by spit and paste. And
that's what I hear anyway. I mean, I've never.
Yeah, right now it's really about right now because the roads have never been worse. The infrastructure is just crumbling around us. And yet, everything goes to tourists.
Right.
And so, like we have a big Airbnb crisis, we have a big rental crisis, we have all this sort of stuff. And so I'm kind of like taking what I'm seeing about my city and this like doing this kind of science fiction kind of projection, near future, and just seeing it as, is what it is that, that we're becoming the adult Disneyland. And that's been true for 10 years anyway, but it's unsustainable in certain ways. And yet, once the 6th of January hits and it's Mardi Gras season and the parades start and we're eating king cake. And then after that, it's St. Patrick's Day, and then after that, it's French Quarter Fest, and then after that, it's Jazz Fest, and then after that,
party after party after party.
It's just like you get the opiate of the masses. Is it's like it's just fun to live here. Even with it falling apart around your ears, it's still the most fun for a resident. You can still do everything.
That's a wild dynamic, though. That's a wild dynamic of just the city that's falling apart, but it's like it's a party destination for tourists and stuff too. It's like
and the thing is, you can have the greatest time and never see a tourist. Your lifestyle here is like it's not dominated by that. Like there's the French Quarter is certain parts of the French.
There's just so many parades and parties and stuff is what it is.
Parades, clubs, dance halls, restaurants, off the beaten path. I mean, like just the other day, this is a touring act, but this is one of those things that can only play New Orleans and maybe 5 other cities. It was a guy, it's this Japanese guy, he lives in New Mexico right now, and he had 18 gongs. And so he gets local people, and he built these bows to play the gongs. Like he's bowing the gongs.
Okay. And you're like with the violin kind of thing?
Yeah.
The violin bow, like a violin bow? Okay.
Yeah, and for like a half an hour, he had this gong symphony. And I was like, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me going because it's like, it was so
amazing,
wild.
Right? Sounds crazy, but also pretty cool.
It was a blast. It was a blast.
It's like one of those things of like, why do people bother doing that? It's like, it's funny just to get back to books a little bit more, but like I've read books that I'm like, why? Like that's crazy. Why would you want to write a book like that? But it works. Like it's fun sometimes, and it's like sometimes it's, the technique just seems insanely difficult. But then people did it anyway, kind of thing. And that's
right,
the Gong guy sounds like, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you have to have a taste for avant-garde jazz, which I do. But still, it was just like this really amazing thing. But that's the thing. Like one of the great things about New Orleans is stuff like that will happen, and so it's all inspiring. And it's like it's this. You get to be the person who's like, don't say no.
Right.
That's what kind of being a New Orleanian can be. It's like don't say no. Don't say it's impossible. Mm-hmm. As long as it's fun. It's going to be fun. People will do it. Like
sounds like a dangerous life, but pretty fun, but definitely more fun, more interesting, right?
Yeah. There's a whole house that is a musical instrument.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I had not even heard of that. That's crazy.
People should go visit that. It's called the I've lost it. But it's just.
I think people can Google it. That description of yours was pretty succinct. I think people can figure that out.
House with an instrument, and people go and play club dates there, and it's amazing. Yeah, so I mean that's the kind.
They play the house. They literally play the house.
Yeah, exactly. They literally play the house, and so that kind of stuff. It's like when you put it in your fiction, you're like, should I tell the real? And the real is so wild sometimes that it's that's like because my Mardi Gras stories, I put them all in my first book, and it's just like I'm just at that point I'm just a reporter,
Oh yeah.
But with science fiction, with speculative fiction, you can make it even more the same kind of thing because the novella that inspired Vamp City just has that same kind of that's a New Orleans novella where it's really about it's vampires versus werewolves, but the vampires are trying not to drink human blood, so they have something called the Vampire Rehab and Gourmet Society. So there's that. And then the werewolves are Vietnamese because we have a large Vietnamese populace here.
Okay.
And they're just mad at the world, right? And so they're going hunting vampires. And so, the vampires are like, no, we're not violent anymore. So, but there's still a clash. And the funny thing is like the very first scene about the werewolves just pulling up on this random guy on the street is exactly what happened to my friend. And I asked him, can I use this? And he said yes. And it's literally like some guys.
Oh, wow.
3 a.m, he's walking back to his car. Some dudes pulled up to him in a truck. And they're like, this is the New Orleans accent. We call it the Yad accent. He goes, bruh, where the vampires at? And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, bruh, where the vampires at? And it was like, he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And the guy pulled out a bat, like a baseball bat, and shook it at him and said, bruh, where the vampires at? He's like, I don't know. And they just took off in the truck. And that's like the opening scene. It's like, that's the werewolves and but yeah, his life. My life, when I'm out doing stuff like that, my life is a Fellini film. I just kind of like,
oh yeah,
big carnival around it. My friend, he even said, he's like, my life is a David Lynch film, and he's the sweetest, nicest person, giving, huge heart, and everything just like around him is like twisted and weird, and I don't know why.
Just a little bit off center, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like wow.
Something, I mean, my wife and I joke about that too, though. I'm definitely a freak magnet. If somebody, with who's slightly off is in a room, just starts walking, they just cut a beeline boom, right to me. That's like they're coming to talk to me. This man will understand me.
Fair enough. You know, I mean, that means you get a lot of good stories second.
Yeah. San Francisco was like that, especially when we were there. We were there during Katrina. Like we left went to Houston, saw the damage, and said, "Let's not go back to New Orleans. Let's go to San Francisco for a little while." And they're just living day to day because I couldn't get a job. I was just hanging out. And it's like San Francisco. Every homeless person in San Francisco was like, "Oh yes, you. I need to talk to you."
Oh wow. Okay, so it's actually funny because you're definitely more of a city guy than me at this point. I grew up in a city technically, but only by organization. 12,000 people, right?
Yeah.
And I still live in a tiny little town, but it's kind of funny because this is we're talking about the science fiction elements of our modern situations, and wherever we are, I find quite fascinating. Like, I mean, I live in southern Minnesota, so it's not the big forest; it's the cornfields. It's not that much different from Iowa.
Yeah.
It's cornfields and the leftover the trails, glaciers left behind, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just a flat terrain that's got lots of lakes in it. But I was driving through it yesterday, going across the middle of the state, and I could not help but remember this kind of weird thing that had been sitting in the back of my mind for a long time, which is rural science fiction. The idea of just these like bleak little oasis situations sitting out in the middle of nowhere, like an old school Western, really. The good, bad, and the ugly kind of thing. You find yourself three guys in the graveyard having a shootout kind of thing.
Right.
And you're far from anywhere, basically. It's just, and I mean, obviously everyone's got a different vibe, but because like you can get like a Southern Gothic vibe like that. That's like more like True Detective kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or you could have this first season of True Detective very much in that vein, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, Louisiana. I mean, it was shot here. The first season was shot here. And,
the first season I'm thinking specifically.
Yeah, and it was It's funny. Well, I mean, like Louisiana, New Orleans is a large town. It's not a big city. New Orleans only has 250,000 people, which to you is a lot, but
it sounds like a lot to me. Yeah,
yeah, it sounds like a lot to you, but that's like a suburb of Atlanta. It's like it's not like Houston, where my wife is from. There's like 10 million people or something like that.
Wow, in the metro.
Houston, so like New Orleans is small, but we think we're the shit. We're so cocky about our culture because we invented jazz. And that
Mardi Gras is the big
Mardi
thing
Gras,
there.
And so
it's the States,
and we're being one of the few truly European cultures in America, descended from a European culture. So but the thing about because of that, we have big city problems, but we're a very small
small town problems too.
Yeah, we've got small town problems too. I'll never forget it. There was a guy. So there's a dividing line between what we call uptown and what we call uptown and what we call downtown. The French Quarter is in downtown. There's a little sector there between that, and then the dividing line is this interstate that leads to the bridge that goes over the Mississippi River. It's called the Pontchartrain Expressway. And so that's kind of the dividing line. Is that you got uptown, you got downtown from there. I live uptown now, but I used to live downtown. Anyway, there was some kid who lived downtown in what's called the Treme. That's what the HBO show was named after. That neighborhood, Treme. He shot somebody. He killed somebody, and he needed to get out of town. So what he did is he went uptown, like he crossed. He didn't even cross the Pontchartrain Expressway. He crossed Canal Street which is the major thoroughfare. We're running down the middle of downtown. He crossed Canal Street, and he was living homeless on the steps of the New Orleans Public Library where I used to live, like 2 blocks off of Canal Street. And he's like, and so they caught him. And he goes,
of course. Yeah. All right. Well, I would think so anyway.
Yeah, but he goes, how did you find me? I left town.
Oh, yeah. So funny.
7 blocks.
Yeah,
but, some people hear
it's so easy. I'll just skip town.
Yeah, I skipped town. It's like you cross Canal
to the public library.
Yeah. And so, so we had that kind of weird mentality. Yeah, like when I was making my first documentary, one guy who's a trumpet player that I was making it about, he lived in the Treme, he lived in that area, and somebody took him out up here to this club that's right down the street from me, and he's like, "Are we still in New Orleans?" And I was like, Jesus. Yes.
Yeah. So we do need to talk about Dirty Magic before we go. So
let's get
into that, because your magazine is currently. Are you accepting submissions? Or
no, we're not accepting submissions right now. Okay. But I really would love it if I could start building up some subscribers. So right now we're at we're about 30, 35 subscribers. So I really want to get over 100.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, because if I can get over 100, right now I have enough of a budget where I can publish 3 stories a month. And if I can get over 100, I can get that up to 4.
Okay.
And so go to dirtymagicmagazine.com, subscribe, and it'll tell you how you can either subscribe through Substack or through Patreon, either one.
Okay.
And
it's a digital magazine for people. For people's. We're not talking an old school paper magazine here.
This is all digital. Unfortunately, I would love to be able to make it a paper magazine, but I don't have the budget for it.
I think we've been dealing with digital magazines for long enough. People will understand.
Yeah. So with the Dirty Magic, what you get is you get 3 fiction stories. I write a very short editorial, and then I write a movie review of forgotten cinema.
Okay, cool.
So the first one I did was issue 1. I wrote about Cast a Deadly Spell, which was one of the main inspirations for Dirty Magic Los Angeles. It's a hard-boiled.
I've heard of this one.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's on
go on explaining it, because I don't think many of my listeners will have heard of it.
Yeah. So Cast a Deadly Spell is a pastiche of a noir starring Fred Ward as Howard Philip Lovecraft, hardboiled. He's the only man in Los Angeles who doesn't use magic. And so they have a noir story centered around him with a femme fatale and the whole thing. It's a fun film. It really is sharp. The dialogue is really sharp, and it's a lot of fun. And so I wrote about that because, like I said, it was kind of an inspiration for the very first anthology, which came out in 2012, or was it 2013? Yeah. And then this issue 2, I wrote about a very obscure horror film called The Devil's Reign. And I really feel like comic book guy whenever I describe this.
Okay. Feel free to go on that if you want to.
William Shatner stars as a small-town sheriff whose town is being overrun by Satanists led by Ernest Borgnine. It's just
then.
Yeah. It's a treasure trove of 60s TV guys in the 70s.
In a horror movie.
Eddie Arnold from Green Acres is in it. Ida Lupino, the great B-movie actress, plays William Shatner's mother. John Travolta makes his movie debut in this, although he's little more than a featured extra. And then the real kicker, because it's a Satanist film, is that the Ernest Borgnine's assistant, and he was also the advisor on the film was Anton LaVey. Actual Anton LaVey is in this film.
Oh boy, this is going full circle. You know, this is episode 335, so we just released episode 333 of my show.
Oh wow!
As we're talking, and I remember, I think it was the very first episode. The book recommendation that my guest gave was the Satanic Bible.
Oh wow!
When I asked him what he was reading, he said it was the Satanic Bible, and I thought, okay,
okay. So that movie's a little cheesy. This movie, The Devil's Reign, a little cheesy, a lot of fun. But so with Dirty Magic, the first one was very noir heavy. The second one was a little bit more comedic. This next one's going to be a little bit more not steampunky, but Victoriana. Issue 3.
Okay.
So I'm basically, I'm buying stories that I love.
Yeah.
And so, but I still see that there's a vision. There's a vision behind it. And it's like, and again, it's going to have a lot of hard boiled.
Okay.
It's going to have a lot of tropey kind of fiction, because as I was reading it, I was like, I don't like the stories that are slow burns. Not in the short fiction. I like
stories,
it in novels.
You can't really do that. Yeah.
I like it in novels, but I didn't like this could be literary fiction, and then at the end, boom, here's the fantasy,
so a magic element or something.
Right. And so I was like, no, I wrote about this on the blog of embrace the tropes from the very beginning. Like the story in issue 1 that I really love is vampire mobsters again, and I was just like, and from the very beginning, he's like, here we go, we're hitting it. We're doing vampires. It's hard boiled. It's sleazy, skeezy, kind of 80s style. But it was a really great story. I mean, it was a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have some weird fiction. We're gonna have the hard boiled, and then we're definitely gonna have some sword and sorcery. Although the first few issues, it's a little light on the sword and sorcery, but it will be coming.
Okay.
Okay,
cool. I might have to try submitting something to that at some point. I do like my sword and sorcery. I don't know when you do open up to submissions. How long are these stories you're taking? Or they're basically any length as long as you.
My requirements say, I think I said 2,500 to 12,500. I don't mind a longer story.
So they can be pretty long then, like almost novelettes. It's digital, so I don't care. Even though I'm laying that makes sense to me, right? Yeah, even though I'm laying it out in InDesign, even though I'm laying it out like it's a magazine, it's digital. I don't care how long the stories are. The problem is that if you write 12,000 words, you're still only getting $50. Yeah, that's the problem for the people who. Well, I mean, for most people, we're not going to be able to write that very quickly, right? Compared to and I feel bad that that's story. $50 is what I got right now. Maybe, that's legit. Will go up as if this stays a growing concern, it will definitely go up. I just found if you can either get me excited in the sense that, action, I'm feeling the action, or make me laugh, I'm probably going to say yes. Okay. And I got some stories that were like this one story that I'm really looking forward to. It's going to come much later. It's it was like this really inventive thing about people who live in the dust, like fairy-esque kind of thing, but it was like a completely original mythology of something that I'd never seen before, and I was really excited by it. And so that's the kind of stuff when you read that, it's like, I've never read anything like that before. That's what makes me go, I'm doing the right thing. Absolutely, yeah. You're making you're actually getting new stuff out there. That's awesome. Right, exactly. And so when you get a story like that, you got to jump on it, right? Right. Oh yeah. And I did. It was like, so it's just like,
the thing about editing is like, I mean, that was my life. So from we got home, with the Kickstarter ended on June 31st. We had just come back from Europe. My wife and I had our grand tour of Europe, and I got back, and a few stories trickled in. It got on a Facebook group that talks about, all of a sudden a big flood came in. That was like 45 submissions in
nice.
in 2 days. And then I was just, and then I was just like, okay, 10 stories a day. That was the goal. And I did it all by myself, and I learned a lot. And when I was at Balticon, the guy who edits Beneath Ceaseless Skies, because this is a fantasy. Dirty Magic is a fantasy magazine. It is not a science fiction magazine. He said, "You'll get science fiction," and I did.
Of course.
And I said,
some people think they're the same thing. I mean, there's an element of writers out there who, actually, honestly, I'm pretty close to being there myself.
Yeah.
Who are like, science fiction and fantasy, they're the same genre basically, but they're not. They're not.
No.
For
not for
readers'
my
purposes. They're not.
Well, this one story came in, and I was like, I was really, really loving it. And then it turned out that the bad guys, it was kind of hidden who the bad guys were. And then it turns out the bad guys were aliens. And I was like, if you'd just done Control F and put the word aliens and put the word goblins in there, I'd have bought the damn story.
Oh, the tragedy.
Yeah, and so, but you said aliens.
You missed the submission guidelines,
Yeah, read the guidelines. Yeah. Read the guidelines.
It's Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull or whatever,
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bye. Thanks.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, I have my quirks. Every editor does. Some things that are an easy sell for other people are going to be a hard sell for me, and vice versa. But and then at the end of the day, I had 12 issues, 3 stories. I had 36 slots, so I had to break.
Wow, so this is a monthly magazine.
Yeah, it's a monthly.
That's pretty great. I mean, I know a lot of magazines like this only come out quarterly, and so 3 issues doesn't sound nearly as slow when you're doing one every month. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's kind
Heroes
of and the great thing that Patreon does, if you just want to try it out, go to the Patreon, search up Dirty Magic Magazine. You can buy just the individual issue, and then that way you have a test. $5, cup of coffee. Give me a cup of coffee. And then, if you like what you read, then hopefully you can it's $5 a month, $50 a year. I mean, I know that's Patreon, that's Substack, that's them, that's not me. I'd go a little cheaper, but I can't. So, but like I said, at the monthly level, I mean, I have a bunch of Patreons, subscriptions just for that. So. Hopefully, it's one of those things like if you like adventurous kind of fiction with the occasional weirdo fiction vibe in there, Dirty Magic is for you. And I just want to. This is something that when I retire from being a professor, and hopefully before my knees give out. That this is something that I can ride, for the rest of my life, and kind of be my legacy alongside my own personal work, So, and I think it's like the ability to be able to be both an editor and a writer will be just a lot of fun,
All right. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll be able to keep going and getting a little bigger every month. Yeah,
that's like 100 is the first level for subscribers. 250, then I might be able to. At 250, I think I'll be able to go to $100 a story, and then hopefully, if I get over 1,000, then I can do I'll probably never be Asimovs or something like that, where you get 10 stories a month. But hopefully we'll be able to just grow so that we've always got good fiction. We've always got interesting columns, and then maybe I can add some book reviews or something like that. Podcasts. I want to So if we're at the very minor scale right now. Hopefully in a couple of years we can get up to the point where it's a really nice concern, where I don't have to, where it's not my whole life, but it's a lot of fun. The work that I do is fun. That's all I really want out of it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining the show for this episode, Charlie. We're about out of time.
Yeah.
And we just got the plug. We just got the plugs right at the end there. So excellent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so remember, DirtyMagicMagazine.com, Dirty Magic Magazine on Patreon, Dirty Magic Magazine on Substack.
Awesome. As for this podcast, you can find more of our stuff at timniederreiter.com or just follow the Libsyn subscription feed, because the podcast is still not updating on my website for whatever reason. The website is busted. The podcast feed is fine. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. And I will talk to you again next week. Thanks again, Charlie.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.